Pharmacophobic is powered by Achieve the Lifestyle, a company dedicated to helping you empower your health, redefine your lifestyle, and all for the health of it. You're listening to Pharmacophobic, where we challenge the state of health in America. I'm Janie, a physician assistant, and I've seen how healthcare keeps people dependent instead of truly healthy.
And I'm Dan, a veteran turned fitness pro here to uncover the truth and explore simple and sustainable health solutions. From big pharma to big food, we're exposing the conflicts of interest keeping us sick and finding better ways to take back our health.
No fluff, no gimmicks, just real talk, real solutions, and a little bit of fun along the way.
Hello there.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pharmacophobic Podcast. I am Dan.
And I'm Janie.
And we are here to help you achieve the strongest, healthiest, most capable version of yourself. Okay, starting out, Janie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
It's another
Thank you.
beautiful Saturday here in South Florida. When that sun hits your skin, it definitely makes you feel a certain kind of way. And it's nothing but good. First of all, I want to congratulate.
Just a little weather update.
Yeah, had to hit you guys with the weather. It's a pleasant Saturday. Little update here in the Achieve the Lifestyle universe, if you will. This lady next to me passed her CSPS exam. Janie, can you tell us a little bit about what the CSPS exam is?
I can.
AM radio voice over here? Yeah, go ahead.
So the CSPS is Certified Special Populations Specialist.
Wow, that's a lot. Wow, that's a lot of.
Yes. So basically, I think a better way to say it is I am a certified strength coach for people with chronic diseases. And so, yes.
Yeah, and she learned this is an NSCA certification, which is also the certifying body that puts out the CSCS, which is what I am.
Certified Strength Coach Specialist.
Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist.
My fault.
But, you know, there's just a bunch of letters that you put behind your name. Now Janie she needs like 2 extra wagons to put all the letters behind her name. What does it sound like now? You were doing it the other day. I was like,
if I put everything like I'm supposed to, it's my name and then MSPAS, so Masters of Science of Physician Assistant Studies, PAC, Certified Physician Assistant, PN1, Precision Nutrition Level 1 Nutrition Coach, and then CSPS, which I am not going to be putting all that behind my name.
You got more initials behind your name than you do letters in your name now, if we even include your middle name. That's wild.
Yeah. But I received this certification, but I'm going to continue getting other strength coach certifications because this, unfortunately, I don't think is the end all be all. I don't have this certification, and now I think I can just coach whoever. I need to put in the groundwork to get that experience, but I don't necessarily know if I'm going to do that. I more did it to. Well, I probably will, but I more did it to educate myself on proper training recommendations to give clients and patients, because I think it is a huge disservice as primary care providers to just tell a patient, go exercise. You need to exercise more. And all too commonly, I see them, if they're going to recommend anything, it's running. And running isn't something everyone across the board can or should do.
I don't think as a function of the human body, it's good if you can run. But if you go into fitness or a search for fitness thinking that the only way you're going to achieve it is running, I would say that you're misguided at best.
Right. Yeah. And now, especially with, fortunately, more studies are showing the benefits of strength training across the board for physical, mental health, managing things like migraines and stuff like that. Healthcare providers will say you need to incorporate strength training, but they don't know how to tell patients that, because if I say strength training to somebody who's never done that, what do you think that they're going to do? Just immediately go and do a regimented program that's going to be beneficial and produce results?
Well, they also, like, a lot of people think because they grabbed a weight that they're doing strength training. And I, see them at the gym, like they're doing, and granted, listen, you're at the gym, we love you, we're glad you're here type of thing. And you're more likely to find the right answers if you're at the gym already than if you're still at home wondering what to do. So I'm not throwing shade at these people, but you see them and they're like doing bicep curls and little tricep things, like little crazy little routines with 5-pound dumbbells, and they'll tell you they're strength training when they're really not just yet, you know?
Yeah.
So that's it. But they'll tell the doctor, yeah, I'm strength training, I'm doing this. And the doctor doesn't know.
Yeah.
Nah, buddy, you got to do a little bit better. So I think that puts you in a place where you can be like, no, it should look more like this.
Yeah. Like, for example, that we gave in a previous episode, a gentleman told me he was strength training. I'm like, okay, but doing what? And he said 3 sets of 20 of all movements. And that's not going to give him the results of what he was seeking for that individual. And also for women, as we age, osteoporosis is a real thing. And one of the best ways to manage that is strength training, weight-bearing exercises, but all too commonly, they just encourage people to go walk and just, say that that's a weight-bearing exercise, which...
If you put a vest on.
Right. If you do a weighted walk, or if you weren't walking at all before and you increase the intensity of the walk, whether it's hills, elevation, or speed or duration, sure, you can reap some benefit from that. However, it's important to know, like what Dan said, put a weight vest on or do some resistance band training, get with a train, And so I feel like with this education that I sought for myself, I am now a better medical provider because I can utilize movement as medicine, which it should be. As a first line therapy, everyone should be recommending that. And I think it's sad that healthcare providers do not have this education. Orthopedic doctors who manage musculoskeletal things have no strength training education. Gastroenterologists who manage your gut health have no nutrition training. So to me, there's a disconnect there where these medical providers are set up to not utilize first-line therapies and heavily rely on medications, procedures, and surgeries, and everyone else, we as patients are left, the worse off for it. And so I am trying to arm myself with education to be able to provide people better lifestyle tools to help prevent disease, manage disease, and optimize their health. So,
yeah, I think a lot of, we're not credentialists. We're not people that put a lot of weight behind initials, behind names, and, I have such and such certification, or I did this certification. We're not those kind of people. We believe more in experience-based type stuff and what you're actually seeing and what you're actually working with and learning in the trenches, as the kids would say.
Right.
But these things, not only do they open doors and people, sadly, a lot of people respond to initials behind the name better than they would if you didn't have them, even though you could have all this experience, whatever, and the certifications are necessary to a certain degree. So, but it opens up a level of understanding because you sat down and dealt with these textbooks and stuff. You could be like, hey, there's a base there that I can build upon with the experience that I'm going to go seek out and the people that I'm going to help and what I'm going to see in the trenches. It also, like what I told you as you were taking that test, it's these NSCA tests are not easy. They're definitely
I hate standardized testing.
And not only that, it's like the CSCS one I was there for hours. It might have had 400 questions or something crazy like that. I don't even want to remember, because I took it during the event that shall not be mentioned, and I was wearing one of those things on my face, and I couldn't really breathe, and I don't do well sitting down in front of computers and tests. I just don't like that stuff. So it was a little bit painful, but I passed it, and I'll never take it again because I'll keep putting out CEUs every year so that I can keep my certification. But what I told you was like, hey, they want one answer, and if you've seen a thing or two, then you know a thing or two. That reference right there. But a thing or two, that a lot of these questions are going to have more than one answer.
I know.
So it makes it more challenging to take that test. It's even harder to take that test.
It's not any different than the certifying exams for my PA license. And so...
They want the one answer, but you have 25.
They'll give you a setting like patient presents to the ER in respiratory distress. What do you do first? This, or this. And I'm like, in real life, you do all the things at the same time. There's I understand that there's an order of things, but in real life, so say chest x-ray is not available, are you not going to give them the breathing treatment until the chest x? No, so I get it. And you kind of have to play that game with testing. Yeah. Like, the thing we talk about on here, one of the questions for this exam was review questions was what's the most common cause of hypertension? And it's idiopathic. And I'm like, hard disagree. I wrote in insulin resistance on the practice exam, but I couldn't do that in the real test. But anyway, so
it's funny too, because you were asking me questions of like, oh, if a person is presenting with patellofemoral pain, like what exercise can they do? And they give you a choice. And I'm like, well, it depends, because I've had one person do this one. I've had another person do that one. I've had another
that question
person
was
do that
trash.
one.
I remember
yeah,
that.
you know, I'm
burned
just
into my
like,
brain.
it just depends. I got lots of answers for you because I've seen lots of cases. So, you know, there's ways around it, and I'm going to try a bunch of stuff. So I can't answer that question objectified. Be like, nope, this is the only thing that's going to work for them.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So now you have that in your toolkit. That's good.
Yep.
I think a lot, you know, with our company, like Achieve the Lifestyle, a lot of what we want to do is be able to have answers for people, even if the answer is pointing them in a different direction. Be like, hey, we don't handle this, but I know somebody who does, or I am aware of something that could benefit this situation, and we're going to point you in that direction. Because ultimately what we want and what we're here for is to see people succeed in the pursuit of long-term health. Because I think as the population gets healthier and healthier, you know, if we get one person healthier and that person helps another person and that person helps another person and so forth, and we, you know, start beating back this chronic illness situation that we have in this country, things just get better in general. Yeah. You know, people are happier, people are healthier, healthy life, happy life, and things just get better in general. Your neighbor's more pleasant, you know, your trip to the grocery store is more pleasant because everybody's in a better mood type of thing. I'm not saying we're going to solve all the problems, but we might solve a lot of them.
People might be more active and put away their grocery carts.
Oh, baby, don't get me started on that one. Listen, this is a PSA. Cartnark, that guy's hilarious. PSA, if you go to the grocery store or Target or Walmart or wherever, one of these places, and you're the type of person that gets your you don't carry your groceries out, you go in the grocery store and then you put your stuff in the car and you just go like this with the grocery cart, and just throw it out there and leave it out there in the parking lot. I hope your coffee tastes like decaf in the morning, okay?
That doesn't make sense.
I hope.
You know, the little petty wishes, like I hope every time you wash your hands, the tip of your long sleeve gets a little wet. Yeah.
I hope you wake up in the middle of the night and you stub your toe. That is crazy, man. That is crazy. Like, that's the worst type of... You've told me everything I need to know about you. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Okay.
Another update that I wanted to share was I always talk about, you know, stress response, completing the stress cycle, because our stress response was evolved from real fears of, you know, like a tiger or a bear chasing you, confronting you, you having to fight it, right? But now it's emails, traffic, somebody, you know, says something to you. So interestingly enough, one of our friends experienced the OG form of stress, where she lives on a lot of land. She was looking for her dog, who she thought had wandered off, and she came in face to face with a bear. Okay. And she was able to, you know, her other dog was with her, scared it off, hopefully, I think. And then
she just hightailed it.
She hightailed it back home. And I was having the conversation with her. She was really, you know, frazzled by it, rightfully so, right? And she had trouble sleeping from it. And so I was just talking to her about, all right, you need to process this, like what happened, because you were able to run to safety, you were home, but there hasn't been the completion of that stress response. And so one thing that I encouraged her to do.
There's also like, I was just thinking, it just hit me. Because I'm like, bear, I mean, but you got away. Why would it affect your sleep? And I'm like, okay, people are not conditioned to hit that high a level of adrenaline response there.
Right.
So it takes a while to come back down.
Well, and also the fact that, I mean, she's a mother, okay? And so I'm just speculating. She may be listening and just be like, no, that's not accurate. So let us know. But I'm just speculating the fact that, she is a mother, that now you know that that's out there. Mm-hmm. Your kids are playing outside so it's just, on your mind. Yep. So I feel like that can really weigh on her. But they know that there's bears around there. This is the first time she came into approached one, right? She's seen them on their security cameras and stuff.
I I still think there's a better way to tell that story.
Oh, stop. Because then you're just going to make up stuff.
She fought the bear and won.
She did not fight it.
She's here to tell the story. She fought it and won. Double-legged the bear.
But one thing that I shared with her to help her, that I was fortunate enough for my friend Brenna, who's a social worker, has shared this tactic with me when I was going through my surgery for melanoma, is that the story of what happened, we tend to fixate on the negative or scary things, and we don't give equal attention to the good things or the good possibilities. Okay. And so I encouraged my friend to say, I'm not discounting how scary and frightening it was, but we also have to realize that she's been training with Dan for 2-3 years.
Over 2
years.
Yeah. It's been a while.
And I knew her. We used to do CrossFit together. She's always been active. She's always had activity in her toolkit. And so I said, we need to focus on the fact that you have been taking care of yourself. You've been building your strength, building your agility, staying ready in a sense, so that you were able to run away and flee to safety without falling, without stumbling, without slowing down. Just think, if you had been completely out of shape, you may have like tripped over something and not be able to catch yourself and fallen down, and it could be a different story, right? And so you need to focus on, like, celebrate the fact that you take care of yourself and you're badass, and look what that enabled you to do, and think of how you can keep your family safe in that regard as well, and give that equal attention. And so,
it's a story of capability.
Yeah.
Honestly. I mean, and a lot of people say, like, well, if things are that crazy, my body's going to have like this heightened adrenaline response. True.
Yeah.
But your ceiling, your potential is still lower than most. If you're a very physically robust person, your response is going to be that much better.
Quote, you fail at the margins of your experience. Is that?
No, you fall to the highest level of training. You fall back to your highest level of training. So if you haven't trained a lot, that level's not going to be very high.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to share that, because I think all too often, and this goes a little bit about the podcast with Nick, but we kind of get stuck in this cycle of thought of only the bad, only what I didn't do, only what could have happened, the scary stuff, when we need to pay attention to the good things. We need to change our mindset to appreciate the good things as equally as the bad or scary things, and spend more time focusing on that, because I think that would put us in a better mental space.
Yeah, and that's a good mental exercise too, to like, I mean, it's hard to do, but if you learn to do that, and even for people that know they should be doing that, it's still a challenge to do. But if you can train yourself to always look, and it seems kind of cheesy, or you're like, I'm looking for the silver lining, but it works.
It does. I do that.
A good exercise.
When we lived in Dallas and I was commuting for work, traffic was a bear, right? And then I don't think it compares to South Florida traffic, but it's still high stress, right? I've developed the mindset of anytime I'm in traffic, even if I'm going to be late and I feel myself starting to get frustrated, I just try to change my mindset of how fortunate am I to be driving in a car and I don't have to wait on a bus schedule, even if I'm going to be a little bit delayed. And if there's an accident, I am so glad that I'm stuck in traffic and not the reason for the traffic.
Yeah.
So I try to shift that a little bit. And as Dan said, yeah, it sounds cheesy, but I notice a feeling of that's true. I mean, my day's messed up for 5-10 minutes that I'm late, or you totaled your car and you're injured and you have to go to the and so what would you rather be doing?
Yeah, I remember one of the first gnarly traffic jams that I got in here in South Florida, and I was going to work, and I'm gonna see clients, so I'm like on a tight timeline, and I left with plenty of time. 15-minute drive turned into an hour and a half in 95. Crazy traffic, like the most unexpected thing ever.
Is that the day that the fire happened?
Yeah, that was the day. So what had happened was, a dude was on the side of on the shoulder, his car broke down, and a semi hit him from behind, and the car caught fire and he was trapped in the car, he died. But I'm in traffic, so I grew up in Puerto Rico, which is traffic buku traffic. So my blood pressure, I was in the car punching the air, like, having a fit.
Oh, I remember this. And then my favorite coffee cup, my favorite travel coffee cup was thrown away after this because it got used as a urinal.
We were stuck in traffic. What can I say? We were stuck in traffic. I mean, we weren't going anywhere. There was no getting off the highway. It was crazy. And then when I drive past the wreckage and see that car burnt up, I'm like, and you get, somebody died there. I'm like, yep, somebody died here for sure. Hands down, no denying it. So then I was like, you know what? That's that reframe. Be like, I'm glad I'm not that guy. You know, rest in peace to whoever that was. But it's hard if you do that more often than not. It's hard to stay in that negative frame of mind. Now, some people will find a way to stay in the negative frame of mind. You guys are special. You probably need a little bit more than the silver lining exercise. You might need Jesus. I'm just saying.
No, I think it's always good too. And I've seen this a lot. I'm not taking credit. Like none of these are my, unique thoughts, but a lot of thing is pausing and just thinking, because I'm very much, especially when I get into heightened stressful situations, I'll react, right? And so it's just pausing. Let's look at the big picture and then move forward. And so the reframe, I think, is a huge thing and just something I wanted to speak on a little bit today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some health news. We're trying to get in this habit of kind of maybe bringing up what's in the news. I feel
like we need like
breaking news. What's in what might have gotten glanced over by the mainstream media or things that came out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Great. Oh, it's like a little morning news.
Oh yeah.
There we go. Health news update. Here we go. So last week we were talking about the FDA deciding to basically take out the pharmaceutical and biotech company reps off their advisory committees. They can still attend the meetings. They just can't sit on the boards, and they replace them. They're going to replace them with end users, with patients and providers.
And caregivers.
That sounds pretty reasonable to me. That's actually pretty good. So this week I kind of wanted to go back in on the FDA a little bit, because I think what I want people to understand is that the level of co-opting and conflict of interest that is entrenched in the system that we believe is supposed to take care of our health is way, 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 way worse than any of us can imagine. And even somebody like me that I'm consider myself read in on this stuff, because I'm looking for it, because I'm working health, I'm still shocked every time I see stuff come out.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, these guys, they don't give a flying hootenanny about conflict of interest, about actually looking out for the good of the population. They don't care about that. It's more about money exchanges and all this sort of thing, and screw doing right by people. We're just going to do what we want to do. And you can't do a darn thing to stop it. That's why we go back to, hey, your health ultimately is going to be your responsibility. Makes sense? Don't outsource. Don't be like, well, the FDA said. No. You probably need to do some research on your own and figure out what's best for you on your own. So let's talk about this. So recently, this lady, you can look this up.
I have her name written down. Do you need it?
Well, I got the article. I got a Reuters article pulled up here. So this lady, her name is. I don't know why he had me
write it down last night. If he was just going to pull up the article, it's fine.
Yeah, her name. Well,
that's my it's fine section.
Oh my God. This is what I live like. This is what I live with, guys. This is what I live with. I did say that I was going to read this on air. Because the article, as I read it, it just kept getting worse and worse. Okay, so bear with me here, guys. This lady's name is Patricia Cavazzoni. So she was in the FDA, and then she went over to Pfizer. Okay. Oh, that's nice. And listen, we're singling her out because this is one of the most recent, most public ones. But this happens all the time.
She's not alone.
She's not alone. She's in really good company. So this lady was the director of the FDA Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. Pause right there. So she was responsible for people that researched and approved new drugs. So basically handing out FDA approval to new pharmaceutical products.
Prescription and over the counter.
Prescription and over the counter. And then she recently went to Pfizer as their chief medical officer.
That's nice.
That is a nice upgrade in paycheck from working a government job. They probably paid fairly well. It was still a six-figure job, but now she went deep into the six figures with Pfizer. But guess what? It says right here, it's not her first stint at Pfizer. Because guess where she was before the FDA? Oh, she was at Pfizer. Oh, so what was she doing at Pfizer before? Let's see. I don't want to go through this too much, read it too much. I'm wasting time. But yes, she was at Pfizer. She also held several senior executive positions in the pharmaceutical industry for nearly 2 decades at Eli Lilly and Sanofi. So she headed clinical sciences and development operation across multiple senior roles in her previous stint at Pfizer.
Yeah.
So she's been volleying back and forth between Pfizer and some pharmaceutical companies and the FDA. So it's not her first stint at the FDA, but it's not her first stint with a pharmaceutical company. I don't understand how that is okay.
So it's not that she's not knowledgeable in like working for the FDA as, doing drug evaluations, because she's obviously very experienced in that, right? Mm-hmm. However, when the person behind your paycheck is a drug company, are you going to go on the FDA board and go against them when they were your previous employer? And I'm going to assume it wasn't a surprise that they were her future employer.
I agree.
I'm not saying these are just questions that I have and assumptions I have, but there's too much conflict of interest for me that I think that people who have affiliations with pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies should not be on regulatory boards.
So this gets even more interesting here. So they mentioned that the former FDA commissioner, Scott Gottlieb, is a member of the board at Pfizer. Oh. So he was probably her former boss at the FDA, and then he brings her over to Pfizer over again at a higher role. Because after being the FDA commissioner, he goes to Pfizer and becomes a member of the board. Here's the thing. What is the FDA meant to do? Like, let's lay it out. The FDA is a regulatory body for the Food and Drug Administration. Yeah. Okay? So you're going to regulate these industries. What does it look like when you are cozy and you're going to go work for the guys that you were regulating after you worked regulating them? Or what does it look like when you're coming over to regulate the guys that you were previously working for, your homies that you were working for? That doesn't make any sense. It's like I'm a drug dealer and I'm going to go work for the police, and then I'm going to go from the police back to drug dealing. That really, I don't understand this. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And how that's not a problem. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't be able to find gainful employment after you work for the government, but you probably shouldn't be lobbying the government like that after you worked in the government, or you probably shouldn't be coming over and getting into the trenches like that. It just doesn't make any sense in my mind. And like you said, are you going to be impartial with the people that are going to give you this however many % increase once you leave this body? Because you're going to cross over and you're probably going to double or triple your income from going from the FDA to Pfizer. Are you going to ruin that?
Yeah, but isn't that not unique to the FDA? Aren't like members of Congress or the Senate or legislator, don't they end up going to work for pharmaceutical companies after? So, hasn't there been incidents of that?
Another common conflict of interest that I can think of that I know better is retired military senior officers, so generals, military policymakers, going to work for defense contractors after they retire. Meanwhile, when they were in a position, you're up there in the generals, they could make decisions that influence the business of these defense contractors. So, we should take this contract from, I don't know, Lockheed or whatever. We shouldn't take this contract, give this defense contractor this multi-million-dollar contract. And then lo and behold, when they retire and take off the uniform, they go sit on the board for that company that they gave a multi-million-dollar contract to. So it's egregious. Quite frankly, it's disrespectful to the people. More than that, like we've said it before here many times, if you don't know where FDA funding comes from, you should probably go look that up. The FDA is not funded in its entirety or its majority by taxpayer dollars like you would think, because it's a government entity. It's funded by pharmaceutical company money. 70% of their budget is put forth by the pharmaceutical industry. How in the world are we in a scenario where the people that tell us, yes, you can consume this, no, you shouldn't consume that, are being paid by the industry that they claim to regulate?
And the industry that stands to make a huge profit if you are not healthy and reliant on the use of medications.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, when people think about huge profits, they're thinking a couple $1 million here, a couple $1 million here. No, this is a $1 trillion industry when you put it all together. When you put cancer, when you put heart disease, things like diabetes, we're talking about over $1 trillion.
Rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, the autoimmune issues.
It's a lot of money that is being made over on the other side.
Yeah.
But just something for you to think about. I hope this inspires you.
A great topic to bring up after we talked about mindset, trying to look at the positive.
Yeah. Well, the positive, here's the silver lining.
Yeah.
You have more control than you think. Listen, inform yourself. At the end of the day, it's about awareness. That's what's going to proceed to change. So the more you know, the more you can be like, you know what? I think I'm going to research this a little bit deeper. I think I'm going to choose this lifestyle over that lifestyle because I can't necessarily rely on this system to give me what I need to live a long, healthy, fruitful, happy life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So silver lining there, hey, listen, take charge. Your health is your health.
Okay.
Moving on.
And so another thing we wanted to talk about came about. I said about twice, very closely together.
Kind of like a Canadian too. I heard a boat.
A boot.
A boot.
A boot. But Dan and I were eating ice cream a while ago.
Num nums.
And it's a brand called
Ice Cream for Bears.
Ice Cream for Bears. And
we started talking about a bear. Now we're talking about more bears.
Ooh, interesting. That was not planned.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take off the lid and there's that covering that you have to peel back, what does it say on it?
It said the future of food is in the past.
And we looked at that and we're like, that's a great saying.
Yeah.
And then it just kept, simmering in my mind. And I'm like, what about if the future of health is in the past? And I said that on a previous episode. But if we think about it, the same concept of the future of food is in the past, and we look at current trends, we're already starting to do that.
So parentheses first, shout out Ice Cream for Bears. And why we were eating that specific brand of ice cream is because it has like 5 ingredients.
Depending on the flavor.
Depending on the flavor. It's like raw milk, it's sweetened with honey, vanilla.
Eggs.
There's your ice cream.
So
the chocolate one has like the Dutch cocoa, and there's your ice cream. The coffee one has like coffee grounds and like cocoa nibs, and there's your ice cream. Mm-hmm. And it's delicious. Delicious. And you turn that mug around and you read it, and you're like, oh, I know exactly what eggs are and honey is. I know what that raw milk is. I know what cocoa nibs are. Look what's in the cocoa nibs too. Oh, I know what all of that is. I don't need 2 chemistry degrees. And
now you're starting to see more ice creams come out like that.
Yeah. And you know what? They've kind of been around because Van Leeuwen is the other one. Like the French ice creams, they're pretty clean too. It's like simple 5 ingredients. And it makes you wonder because I was thinking about this as we were walking in prior to this being a little bit more aware when people presented me the healthy alternative of
Halo
something.
top.
Like, well, Halo top. God, don't get me. Yeah, that's a terrible version of it. But, the healthy version of stuff, it's actually the original version of it.
Yep.
And what we've been made to believe is the original version is the trash, freaking counterfeit version of the thing.
You grew up with homemade ice cream, right? You said
Yes,
your
my
mom
mother used to make ice cream.
We used to make ice cream in the summer. We had a little ice cream making machine.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That ice cream, that's probably top ice creams that my mom used to make. I mean, it's better than a lot of ice creams.
Yeah. And so it can be frustrating when you realize something can taste so good and it doesn't have all the BS in it.
Yep.
But we've been, fed, because Dan and I used to, kill a pint of Ben & Jerry's on every weekend. So,
I would kill 2 for a while there.
Yeah.
It got out of hand.
Yeah.
It did. But
and then one thing that we've observed is that when we have the ice cream for bears or the Van Leeuwen, you can feel much more satisfied with a smaller amount. You don't feel the need to continue to consume it as much. Now, don't get me wrong, we can, but the sort of the urge to isn't there, because we do know that additives to food to light up the dopamine center of your brain with processed things, and even certain ingredients in ice cream that aren't natural can make it harder to stop consuming it.
I think there's something there though, because I almost kind of detoxed myself, if you will, from eating sweets for months where I wasn't having any. Mm-hmm. And you've been married to me for a number of years, and you know that there's a fat kid that lives right here. He lives right there, right inside of me. He's very jolly, and he likes to eat sweets a lot. And once I get a little taste of sugar, like my eyes roll in the back of my head.
He literally dissociates when he starts consuming sugar. He's not there, but the hand to mouth action is just happening.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm an addict. My name's Dan Brown, and I'm addicted to sugar.
Yeah.
So I had to take hard measures to kind of control that, which was a cold turkey period of sobriety, if you will, where I wasn't eating anything sweet, nothing. And then when I came back to it, then I figured like my body would just kind of hit the satisfaction level quicker. Makes sense, where I'm like, I just have a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, that's good enough. Boom. Yeah. Or the fake stuff, like the really processed, Oreos or some garbage like that. It tasted like it was too much.
Yeah. So I would say that we experienced that when we were in Vegas, when we went to that show. And so I got M&Ms to have, and we could only have a few. It was just before, way too much.
I could kill a family-sized bag of M&Ms.
Yes, you could.
That's how I would go to the movies before. I would sneak in listen to me, family-sized bag of M&Ms, and I could eat the whole thing.
This was before me, so I was not helping.
Yeah. I said it. Go look at the family-sized bag of M&Ms. I could eat the whole thing in one movie. That's disgusting. That's gross.
Yeah. So what we're saying is that the future of health is in the past. And like I said, I mentioned this in a previous episode very briefly. But if we think about the health hacks now that people are trying to do, it's stuff that we did 50, 60, 70 plus
maybe
years ago.
100 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things is processed food. So like we just said, we want to move towards more whole natural foods. Well, processed foods came into, to say it like, I don't know when they came in.
Mainstream prominence. Yeah. Well, the whole fast food things probably started in the 50s with McDonald's.
60s.
Yeah. No, like the 50s with the highways and stuff. Like McDonald's really started its rise, but it wasn't what it is now. I mean, those.
I'm talking like potato chips, cereal.
Yeah, that's
all that
more
stuff.
like the 70s, 80s, probably. Really, the 80s is where that really prepackaged food started really taking a hold of what we've been eating.
And now it's more mainstream. There's many research articles and just journals talking about the effects of ultra-processed foods on kids and people and the ability to be satisfied throughout the day, your general health, everything like that.
So if you really think about it, think of it this way. Let's take something really common, cake, for example. Mm-hmm. cake has a bunch of, the frosting, it has a bunch of stuff in it. If you look at an ingredient list on a cake, it's going to be crazy. Do y'all think that we couldn't make cake until we had all those processed chemistry, freaking experiment ingredients?
No.
Is that cake's been around for ages?
Yeah.
Hundreds of years. How do you think they were making cake before, bro?
Yeah.
So we got to look back at what they were making it with back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Probably eggs, actual sugar,
Flour.
the flour, unbleached, unenriched, like regular flour,
Yeah.
glyphosate free, that sort of thing.
Goodness.
So we've had answers. Like, it's not people like, well, I can't eat cake. Well, you can't eat this version of cake. Mm-hmm. But if cake looked like the way it did 100 years ago, you could probably eat it more often because it's going to be made up of real food. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're moving away from processed foods back to whole food. So now it's popular to eat a whole food diet. Well, that's how we used to eat.
Yep.
Right. So that was in the past. So going back to how we used to eat is where we're going to see improvement in health. Back to more activities, more non-exercise activity, because people are just sitting too much throughout the day. And some people are, they say, well, I go to a gym an hour 5 times a week, but yet I'm still not able to meet my health or weight goals. Well, it's because the other, I don't want to say 23 hours because you also sleep, but say the other, 15, 14 hours of the day, you're just sitting, you're not doing anything. So the emphasis on more non-exercise activity, meaning move throughout the day, this non-exercise activity is getting your 10K steps a day, all these things where we used to do that. We used to be more mobile. We didn't sit in cars all the time. We didn't sit down all the time. We just used to have more labor-intensive jobs and things like that. And so now we're trying to tell people to move more and get back to how we used to move around in general.
The irony of being in the fitness industry where I'm like, if we really sit there and think about it, it's like we had to invent a whole industry to mimic what we used to do naturally.
Right.
A couple 100 years ago, maybe 100 years ago.
Yeah, but we don't even do it as much as we did because, you have clients, and do any of them ever have sessions with you longer than an hour?
No.
Right.
No. But it's funny, like really, if I'm making you do farmer's carries and pushing a sled and carrying a sandbag, like we're really just mimicking your normal workday 100 years ago, type of thing.
But that workday wouldn't have only been designated to an hour. That would have been
the whole day.
Yeah.
It really is. Modern times have brought these modern illnesses, and I'm not saying that we should go back to the cave times, whatever. Although looking back at things, like an interesting exercise here is looking at the Amish population and how they live. Obviously, everybody knows how the Amish live, but what they lack in disease because of the way they live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that is a great point because, I'm not saying like go into the past before antibiotics were known and everyone dies, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying going back to the healthy habits where we were functioning optimally throughout the day. We weren't just sitting and depressed and having issues with weight. Okay. And so seeing where that kind of turned and what daily habits used to look like before that and look like now, and trying to maybe peel back to some of those things.
And a lot of it, when you started looking at it, a lot of it, the stuff that's becoming trendy now is actually a imitation.
That's what I'm saying.
Of natural ways.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like, for example, in the morning, as soon as I wake up, I go for a walk, right? Without my dog, because my dog is 13 years old and he needs to smell every single blade of grass. So that does not count as a walk.
Rolo.
Okay.
Lazy boy Rolo.
Yeah. And so I go for a walk just without him. And I always just think how like I have to get up and go out for a walk, whereas if I lived on a farm back in the day, I would probably be getting up and going to feed the animals, therefore walking around land and everything, which goals, right? I would love for that to be my morning routine, maybe someday.
I got it. Janie told me that she wants me to get her one of those furry cows. So we got work to do.
I grew up in the country. I'm reverting back to it. I want to, in near distant future, however it works out, live in overalls and take care of animals. That's what I want to do. Okay.
A furry cow, preferably. They are kind of cute.
Yeah.
They're really cute.
But anyway, we find that we have to mimic being active all day as we would have if we own land and had to provide for ourselves.
Yep.
Okay. And so now it's walking pads, and I have a walking pad, and I'm not saying that those are bad. I'm saying is, do we not see how we're having to buy things and make special accommodations to live like we used to live?
Yeah.
Right.
But people haven't made that connection. We're like looking at the gimmicks and the gadgets, like red light panels. It's like, you mean
you
that
jumped
thing?
ahead. That was one of my next ones.
That was one of your next ones.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, let me get this big old red light panel that costs thousands of dollars instead of taking my behind outside in the morning and getting that red light, or in the late afternoon and getting that red light at that time.
Now, full transparency, we do have a red light, but it's not very big. It's like size of both my palms.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's useful because we got it because your schedule did not allow for you to see the sun.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be able to get outside till like noon almost.
Right.
So if I'm starting, and there's that convenience. It's like a little sun exposure, if you will. It's not as good as the sun, but it's a little sun exposure. And red light therapy has a lot of benefits when, we start talking about mitochondrial density and all this stuff. So I'm not necessarily poo-pooing on it. I'm just saying like what it is. It's an imitation of getting outside and seeing the first light.
And I actually used it on my skin graft every day because I read a study that it helped skin graft healing on mice. So I was like, sure.
Why not? Try it. Yeah.
And when I went for a checkup with the plastic surgeon, he's like, whatever you're doing, you're putting on it. Because I was just moisturizing it with shea butter. And he's like, just keep doing it. And I thought about telling him, like, I think it might be the red light. But I had mentioned it to him at a previous appointment. And he was kind of like, bleh. But I'm like, I think it might have been the red light.
Yeah, so, I mean, it doesn't hurt. Now, barring like, it does have some effect on wound healing. It does have some effect on mitochondrial density. It's a good thing to have, and it's convenient. And on days where I show up to the gym and it's dark and I know I'm going to be back to back, I won't see the sun till noon or whatever. If I have a couple minutes, I get in there, boom, turn the red light panel on. Let me get some of that red light. And that works.
You used to do it in the morning when you were making your breakfast.
I used to do it at 4 o'clock in the morning when I was making my breakfast, because I know I'm not going to see the sun for a while. But if you have the time and you have the benefit, getting outside is probably going to be better.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so around sunrise and sunset, the UVA, which is the red or near infrared or infrared light, is the most prevalent in the atmosphere, in the sky. Okay, thank you. But most people don't realize that. And, we're preached, avoid the sun, avoid the sun, avoid the sun. And yes, we don't want excessive sun exposure, especially if you're not used to it. Okay. But that sunrise, sunset time, it's not high UVB. And as long as you're not staring directly into the sun, you can get some benefit if you're out during that time without sunglasses on. So if you go for morning walks or go for sunrise, sunset walks and you're wearing sunglasses, you're kind of defeating the purpose. But it can help set you up for improvement in your circadian rhythm. It can help with your sleep. It can help you feel more primed and ready for the day. It can also help you handle sun exposure later in the day because you kind of build up
melanin.
Yes.
So if you get exposed to the first light, it helps melanin production, melanin being a skin protectant. It's what gives you that natural tan. That's why somebody like me, hint, hint.
Is that your natural tan?
With my born with natural tan, I'm higher in melanin. It's harder for me to get burnt by the sun or people like me. If you have darker skin, darker complected, that's a higher level of melanin. You're naturally more protected from the sun. But everybody can have some access to this benefit if you get regularly exposed to that first light. It stimulates the production of melanin. And then when you're exposed to the harsher rays of the sun in the middle of the day, which, by the way, are the ones that give you a higher level of vitamin D production, you're more protected from the sun. Yeah. And this is where you start seeing more of a natural tan come into people versus being burnt.
Right. And I have a colleague named Morgan through the Unconventional Collaborative that I'm a part of, who's a sleep specialist. And I heard her speak on an app called My Circadian. And there's a free version and a paid version. I use the free version, but it will tell you based on your location when's the best time to get that UVA, that red light, in the morning and in the evening, and when the UVB is higher throughout the day. So I find it useful because then I try to time taking Rolo on a walk for that because I know I'll just be standing there a lot.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and then there's also a dietary thing with exposure to the sun that.
Oh, you're going to go there. Okay.
Well, I'm debating whether we should go there right now.
I don't know if we have time for you to go there.
I'll save it. I'll save it.
So
I'll save it for a
basically,
future
there's something
episode.
about the quality of food and the ingredients you consume that can make you more susceptible to burning.
Yeah, there's something there,
Yeah.
and there's something there between what you're consuming and skin cancer rates and all this other stuff. And I'm saying this because we read about it. Obviously, read the people that were talking about this, but there's also I've got observational.
I think that would be good if we could find a guest who's like a functional dermatologist or somebody with skin health to talk about that, to kind of give a more broad perspective on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it a mystery for now.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a relationship there between what you're eating and how your cells are reproducing, and then what happens when you expose that to the sun.
Yeah.
There's also a relationship there between exposing yourself to the sun and sunscreen and what happens there. All I'll say on that is I want you to take your sunscreen, okay, next time you go to the beach or whatever, you're going to stand out in the sun and turn it around, bow, and do what we tell you to do with everything else and read that ingredient label. So
2 things. I've noticed a lot of people are doing that, and this is like a human problem. A lot of people are caring about the quality of their sunscreen, not for themselves, but to protect the coral. So whatever your motivation is, look at the ingredients, because there is some BS in mainstream sunscreens that will harm the coral.
Yes, that's true. And if it's harming the coral,
what do you think it's doing to you?
What do you think it's doing to you? Because I'm just putting it on the outside. No, my guy and my lady, that's seeping into your bloodstream through your skin. Your skin absorbs that stuff. So if it harms the coral, what do you think it's doing to your behind?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I'll say this as well. Mineral sunscreen and the stuff they sell you as like, oh, this is healthier, better for the environment. That stuff's some BS too. So you might want to read that label as well.
I don't think we have all the information about that, so I think we should table.
No, I'm going to table it, but we got plenty of information on it. I'm just not ready to unveil it on people today because we're focusing on something completely different.
And so one more thing about the red light for sunrise, sunset. I like to think big. And so why do you think, if you're going to say like, oh, the sunrise and sunset, the UVA, the red light, it doesn't matter. Why are we as humans so attracted to the sunrise and sunsets? Why do we, like, when we see it, we're like, oh, this is beautiful.
You want to post it all over Instagram and stuff?
You want to like, good morning. I mean, I did that recently. Good morning, sunset or sunrise. Is it because our body is craving that? Is like God-given nutrients and
like there's a nature call to it,
right? And so we're like, we seek it out, and it's so pleasing to us that we're like, oh, it's beautiful, and you just feel so good when you can see the sunrise or the sunset. There's something there. We're driven to do it, and I think it's for the reason because it does help with internal processes.
Yeah, there's a lot like intuition and gut feelings and all that sort of thing, and we've talked about how that gets better as you get healthier. But there are things that you're going to be naturally drawn to for a reason. It's like you're hardwired to seek these things out because they're good for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the more you eat ultra-processed foods, the more you rely on medications for your health that you could otherwise treat. There's some things that we understand you need medications for. The more you disrupt your sleep, the more you do these things, the more you take away from your natural state to where you can't realize these things, you can't perceive these things. So it's sort of stripping away all the distractions, the the things that muddy up your mind.
Yeah.
So that way you can get back to homeostasis, back to your functional, like your baseline self.
Yeah, I think that's why this whole kind of, when you start seeing that the modern health hacks are actually, yesteryear's
Exactly.
normal way of life, the longer you start seeing that, or the quicker you realize that, then it becomes with the underlying theme of all these health hacks, or realizing that actually the future might be in the past,
right,
is one word. If I were to summarize it, what do you think it is? Simplicity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's simplicity. It's simplifying things a little bit more and getting back to basics.
Yeah.
Really, health strategies, and any strategy really in the long run for whatever you want to think of, the more complex it is, the less likely it is to work. Makes sense? Mm-hmm. Now, navigating long-term health is a robust issue in itself, but the solutions and the systems that you want to inject to be able to get there should be simple.
Yeah. And another thing, speaking on, regulating circadian rhythm, is there's a big movement to regulate your circadian rhythm.
Yep.
Going to bed at consistent times, wearing eye masks to block light. Because we were meant to
blue blockers
before bed, because we were meant to sleep in darkness. We didn't have street lights, night lights,
yep.
Things like
we didn't have LED lights. We didn't have cell phones to stare at us, and we stare at them in the middle of the night.
So blue blockers to block the blue are basically trying to mimic just not having screens or exposure to them, right?
Or being candlelit at night. Yeah.
Wearing eye masks, making your house cool, dark, and quiet before you go to sleep is mimicking how we used to sleep. When it was dark, we slept. When the sun came up, we got up. And so trying to get that circadian rhythm back to how it's supposed to be. Now, some people are like, but I'm a night owl. Studies have shown that's a very small amount of people who are night owls. You've probably just conditioned yourself or distracted yourself to stay up late and then sleep in longer, when it's actually proven that somebody who goes to bed at 10 and wakes up at 6 is getting better sleep quality than somebody that goes to bed at 2 and wakes up at 10, even though they're both 8 hours.
Yeah.
Now, I understand some people shift work. I'm talking about people who can go to bed and who are purposely pushing back their time, whether it's as a means of distraction, what's that, scrolling, like procrastination scrolling or something. I can't.
Scrolling?
No, there's something about like people procrastinate before bedtime because it's like their only time for themselves. And there's a name for it. I can't remember it, but I can't remember. But anyway, it's conditioning yourself to try to get more optimal sleep. And that more optimal sleep is how we used to do it back in the day. So, avoiding screens, you just talked about that. We're now, another popular thing is grounding. There's grounding mats, there's grounding beds, things like that, which I'm not against. I'm actually looking into it because our setup where we live right now, it's not easy for me to go and stand out on the grass or in the ground. Plus, same with people not putting away their shopping carts. Some people don't even pick up their dog poop, which equally is offensive to me. So I don't want to go,
They're the same people.
But who knows? Maybe stepping in shit will be like the ultimate grounding.
They'll give you these nutrients. You'll be like, oh my God, my magnesium levels are through the roof right now. I think they're the same person though. The person that lets their dog poop and walks away.
The other day I saw it
that doesn't put the cart away.
In front of the dog baggie and trash can. There was a massive turd right in front of it. And I'm like,
you see, this person probably needs some Achieve the Lifestyle in their life.
Yeah.
Like if they started lifting weights and eating better, they probably wouldn't. They feel more inclined to pick their dog's poop up.
Or they could do an appropriate hinge to pick up their dog shit. Yeah.
Maybe, you know what? They need some weights and some
Maybe you
whole
should do
foods.
a post about hinging and how it can be applicable to picking up dog poop.
Or we could talk about how eating better and moving your body makes you feel better, and therefore you want to pick your dog's poop up and put your shopping cart away because now you feel better. You can see things a little bit more clearly, and you can see how not doing so makes you a grade A butthole. to keep it kind.
Yeah. So with the grounding, we're basically going back into time when we were out walking outside and didn't have shoes. Okay.
Yeah.
That may be a little bit further, right? Because shoes obviously keep us from like cutting our feet and stuff like that. But
there's so much.
But we used to have hobbit feet more, so the calluses that would protect us.
Or you would wear actual like animal hide shoes, not these rubber soles that lift you 3,000 feet off the ground, so you're not in contact with the ground. And there's something there with electrical charges of the earth and you being in more closer contact with the ground.
So like we're fortunate enough to live in a place where we can go walk on the beach barefoot, right?
Yeah.
And I have seen a lot of people, I don't know the science on this, I've just heard people say this, that whenever they fly somewhere to help prevent jet lag, they take their shoes off and stand on the ground, at a beach if it's a place where there's a beach. But they stand barefoot on the ground for a little bit, and that helps them sort of. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard that.
I'm going to go ahead and say it's true because it was in a documentary I saw once called Die Hard, the first one. That's why he's barefoot the whole movie, because he got to the place and he took his shoes off.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay. And the last one I want to bring up is we're back to chasing temperature extremes. Okay. We used to live in
unregulated temperatures.
Yeah, unregulated temperatures where, your house didn't have central heat, central air. Maybe like we lived in that in Albany where we had a window unit for an air conditioner. So it got hot, right? Mm-hmm. And not as hot as South Florida. I understand that, but it would get up to the 90s and just no wind. So in houses, these are old houses, got stuffy. Now, people now are trying to do cold plunge and saunas. And I'm not saying that they aren't beneficial. I enjoy a sauna and I enjoy I don't get into a cold plunge currently, but I'll do like the cold showers sometimes. And I see the benefits of it because we need those things because we live in central air. We're 72 degrees, 24/7, you should drop it at night to be cooler, but our bodies benefit from temperature extremes. There are health benefits from getting really hot or getting really cold. It helps with your immune system, obviously within safe parameters. But we don't have that anymore. And we've talked about that before, how people are just too comfortable that then when they're presented with any sort of temperature extreme, they can't handle it.
Yeah.
Right? And so because we're so temperature regulated, people are spending money and seeking out ways to disrupt their temperature regulation to get extremely hot, to get extremely cold, because they feel better from it.
Yeah, and not only that, if you look at the studies on sauna from Finland, I mean, the level of cardiovascular benefit that it gives you with minimal exposure. I think like 1 15-minute session a week, the reduction in heart disease risk is insane.
Yeah.
Obviously asterisk next to the studies, but this is from Finland. And the more you get exposed, obviously the drop it has a cap, but just one exposure a week is crazy. So all that to say that, being exposed to the elements is actually good for you.
Right.
In a way.
And I don't have a great answer on, okay, I can't get to a sauna, I can't get to a cold plunge, so what can I do? Am I saying turn your heat up to 90 degrees and just suffer in your home? No, I'm not saying that. But I think we need to find a way to where you're just not in this 72 degrees all the time. Get outside, move around. Don't be afraid to sweat a little bit within reason of your current health status, obviously. But just as we spoke in that past episode, get a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but there is some truth behind it.
Yeah. Well, no, and we're not saying either that cold plunging and saunaing are the be all end all for your health. There are bigger rocks to move for long-term health, but if you have a lot of stuff dialed in, they could be a positive addition. I'm going to skip out on the cold plunging. Your boy does not like cold water. Call me soft. I don't care. But the sauna, I could reason with that one a little bit more.
My thing with cold plunges, I don't like chlorine. And only cold plunges I have access to are public.
Yeah.
So they're chlorine, right? Obviously for
I don't like
sanitary reasons. And so, along with my farm, with the animals and my overalls, Or we could have like a cold plunge where it's just us, so we don't have to worry about that as much.
Salt water it, one of those salt water ones. We're going to have to do really well to get all this stuff. I'm already calculating my expenses. My wife is going to get expensive. At least she doesn't want Birkin handbags. She wants a furry cow and land.
Oh, just Carhartts and land. That's all I need.
I ain't got to worry about the handbags. It's like, okay, furry cows, land, check.
Yeah.
All that to say,
Yep.
you know, if we're looking at it, I think that the solutions to a lot of our current health problems seem to be stuff that we were naturally doing before in the past, which tells me that the answers to a lot of the issues we have are already out there. But we are ignoring them a little bit. We're like, oh, that was back in the day. That don't matter no more. You know, replace sunlight with the infrared panel. What do you need that sunlight for? Stay indoors, but just get under the panel, which is better than just staying indoors and not being exposed to any red light. But, you know, I feel like we have the answers already to a lot of the stuff, and we're just not.
A lot of the answers that are out there are free 99.
Free 99.
Right? And so going outside in the morning around sunrise, going outside in the evening around sunset, getting your feet on the ground for a little bit, trying to eat more whole natural foods, going to bed when it's dark at a reasonable time, or making your house cool, dark, and quiet, getting up around when the sun comes up, you know, sort of getting into that pattern of things, how they used to do it. But maybe the way you do it's a little bit different now, because obviously we have advances from then. Yeah.
But it's fine. You know, we have the answers and we're not paying attention to them. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's always fine. With that, guys, takeaway here. Listen, the key word is simplicity and sustainability. Obviously, when you choose to implement health habits into your life, it has to be sustainable. Like if you're going to do it for 2 weeks, I'm going to drop 5 pounds or whatever, and then you're going to stop, that makes no sense. It has to match what your lifestyle, what you're currently doing, or you have to bring your lifestyle to a certain point where you can implement these things because you know they're going to be good for you long term.
Right.
And the simpler, the better. Start simple. Don't make it complicated. You know, like these people, when we talk about nutrition and they want to come up with all these crazy healthy recipes, I'm like, bruh, you're not going to be doing that next year. You're only going to do, so let's get this thing simple. I'm going to get some ground beef, boom, boom, boom. I'm going to chop a couple veggies or whatever, put the little potato, done, you know? So it's something to consider. Simplicity and sustainability are always going to be the answer. And a lot of these old school answers are pretty simple to the point that people did them for hundreds of years.
Exactly. And
naturally.
I think another thing is, before you seek to add on things to improve your health, like another supplement, another, you know, something else that's being sold to you, why don't you take a step back and see how you can regulate your life to how we used to? And does that yield any improvement? Does eating more whole natural foods, does regulating your sleep cycle, and your circadian rhythm, just moving regularly in non-exercise activity, how does all of that make you feel? And then if we're still not feeling better, but you're doing all that, that's when it's time to add things on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And guys, this is just a little snippet of what we do with Achieve the Lifestyle. When we talk about health coaching and lifestyle coaching, it's more about that. It's like, hey, how do we have these principles and these guidelines that have proven themselves effective in making people healthier for ages. How do we implement them into your life? Sometimes you need a coach for that. And that's what we're here for.
Yep.
So if you need help with your lifestyle, guys, hit us up. Achieve the Lifestyle on the Instagrams. Or you can email us at Janie. What's the email?
info@achievethelifestyle.com.
Check out our website, achievethelifestyle.com, and hit us up, guys. We hope that this episode was helpful in some way, shape, or form. That's what we're here for. If you have any questions when this thing drops, comment on the post and send your questions in, because we want people to walk away with Z knowledge.
Yeah.
You know,
and give us 5-star ratings, because we're the best podcast you've ever heard. And I know you're just blown away. You're like, oh my God, if I could give them 10 stars, I would. But we're okay with 5.
Yes, we are okay with 5. Listen, this is episode what? I don't know what number it is. We're young. We're a baby podcast. We're not even a toddler yet, but we're going to the moon.
14.
It doesn't matter because we're going to the moon with this thing, and you might as well jump on the wagon, guys. With that, we're out.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Pharmacophobic Podcast. If you found this conversation interesting, which I know you did, make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to check us out on Instagram at Achieve the Lifestyle. And if you're interested in pursuing a stronger, healthier, more capable version of yourself, check out our website at achievethelifestyle.com.
The Pharmaphobic Podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not constitute medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any medical or wellness decisions. While we discuss pharmaceutical, holistic, and alternative health topics, our content is not a substitute for professional medical guidance.